White police chief throws hot water on black woman when a moment of stark injustice unfolds in the blink of an eye, setting the stage for a remarkable twist of fate. This is the story of Claire, a young black woman whose encounter with Chief Walters, a respected but deeply flawed white police officer, sparked a chain of events that neither could have predicted. On a humid August afternoon in the small town of Millerwood, Claire found herself in the wrong place at the wrong time. As she walked past the local diner, her thoughts were on her upcoming job interview, not on the heated arguments spilling out from the diner's doors. Chief Walters, in full uniform, was red-faced and shouting at a waitress over a minor misunderstanding about his order. The sight was jarring, but Claire intended to walk on, until the chief's anger pivoted towards her. Without warning, the chief's frustration erupted, and in a moment driven by unexplained rage, he threw the cup of hot water in his hand towards the ground. The water splashed from the pavement, scalding Claire's leg. The pain was immediate and searing, but it was the humiliation and shock that held her rooted to the spot. Bystanders watched in stunned silence, some with their phones already capturing the scene, as the realization of what he had done dawned on Chief Walters. The tension in the air was palpable as Claire, supported by a kind stranger, sat on the curb, nursing her burn. The chief, momentarily taken aback by his own actions, approached her. His apology was awkward and hesitant, indicating his struggle with the situation. Just as the bystanders' videos began to make rounds on social media, a surprising turn of events unfolded. 3 minutes had not yet passed when an elderly woman, who had witnessed the incident, stepped forward. She was none other than Mrs. Eleanor, the chief's former elementary school teacher. The disappointment in her eyes was evident as she addressed him. "Is this the boy I taught to respect all individuals, to understand the impact of his actions?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. The confrontation drew a small crowd, and as people started to murmur among themselves, Chief Walters faced a moment of reckoning. The situation escalated quickly as local news stations picked up the story. The video of the incident, now viral, sparked widespread outrage. But it was Mrs. Eleanor's words that resonated more deeply, prompting an unexpected reaction from the community and beyond. As the sun began to set, the story took another turn. Moved by the incident, a local business owner offered Claire a job, recognizing her dignity in handling the confrontation. Meanwhile, Chief Walters, faced with growing public pressure and personal reflection, announced his decision to step down and engage in community service, specifically focusing on bridging gaps between law enforcement and the community. The resolution of Claire's ordeal brought the town together in ways no one could have anticipated. The incident became a catalyst for change in Millerwood, inspiring dialogues on accountability and reconciliation. Claire's fortitude and Mrs. Eleanor's wisdom highlighted the power of community and the impact of standing up for what's right. In reflecting on the events, the takeaway was clear. Actions born of anger can lead to unexpected pathways of redemption and understanding. The community learned that from the darkest moments can emerge the brightest opportunities for growth and unity, making Millerwood a beacon of hope for others to follow. In every voice that dared to speak out, in every silent nod of agreement, the message was clear. We all have a story, and each one deserves to be heard, respected, and learned from, weaving a tapestry rich with the threads of humanity and grace. In the days following the incident, Millerwood buzzed with a new sense of purpose. The local diner where everything unfolded became a meeting ground for community leaders and residents who were inspired by Claire's resilience and Mrs. Eleanor's wise intervention. As Claire prepared for her new role at the local business, she found herself at the heart of a community initiative aimed at fostering understanding and cooperation between the police and the people they served. One evening, as the golden hues of sunset painted the town, a community forum was held at the high school auditorium. People from all walks of life gathered, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and hope. Chief Walters, having stepped down from his role, sat quietly in the back, his presence a silent pledge to listen and learn from the community he had vowed to serve. The forum kicked off with Claire sharing her story. Her voice was steady, her message clear. How can we build trust if we don't first acknowledge the pain? Her question hung in the air, a challenge to the room. As she spoke, her eyes met those of Chief Walters. It was a moment of powerful acknowledgement, and the chief lowered his gaze, humbled. Mrs. Eleanor took the stage next, her years of wisdom commanding respect. Change, she said, begins with a single act of courage. Whether it's a confrontation or a simple conversation, each is a step toward understanding. Her words stirred the crowd, prompting nods and murmurs of agreement. The discussion that followed was raw and honest. Teenagers spoke about their fears and aspirations, parents expressed their desires for a safer community, and officers shared their challenges and commitments to change. It was a tapestry of voices, each adding depth and color to the vision of a more united Millerwood. As the forum concluded, the atmosphere was charged with a renewed sense of commitment. Plans were made for regular meetings and workshops. Chief Walters, moved by the stories he heard, approached Claire. With genuine remorse, he said, "I am here to learn and to help heal the wounds I've caused." Claire, surprised by his sincerity, nodded, a silent acknowledgement of his commitment. In the weeks that followed, Claire's story continued to resonate. The video of her ordeal was no longer just a symbol of pain, but a catalyst for change. Her job at the local business flourished as she became an advocate for community engagement, using her platform to promote dialogue and understanding. The change in Millerwood was palpable. Where there had once been mistrust and fear, there was now conversation and laughter. Children played in the streets, their parents watching with less fear in their eyes. The police force, under new leadership, engaged with the community through workshops and events, breaking down barriers and building bridges. As Millerwood transformed, so did the lives of those who had sparked the change. Claire, once a victim of a moment's anger, was now a leader in her community, her story a testament to the power of forgiveness and the strength of unity. Chief Walters, humbled and enlightened, dedicated his time to mentor young officers, teaching them the values of empathy and respect. The story of that fateful day and its aftermath traveled beyond Millerwood, spreading through social media and news outlets, inspiring other towns to examine their own communities. Claire's courage, Mrs. Eleanor's wisdom, and even Chief Walter's willingness to change were now part of a larger narrative, one that spoke of the possibility of redemption and the enduring power of community. In Millerwood, the sunset was no longer just a signal of the day's end, but a reminder of the light that can emerge from the darkest moments, a community forever altered by the courage to confront, to question, and to care. As autumn arrived, the leaves in Millerwood painted the town in shades of amber and gold, mirroring the warmth that had settled over its residents. The community's efforts to bridge the divide between the police and the populace flourished, turning Millerwood into a model of reform that drew attention from neighboring towns and cities. Local universities invited Claire and other key community members to speak about their experiences, spreading the word on how empathy and dialogue could transform relationships and restore trust. During one such event, Claire stood before a crowded auditorium, the spotlight casting a warm glow around her. "Isn't it remarkable," she began, her voice filled with emotion, "how a single moment of pain can lead to such profound healing?" The audience was captivated, hanging on her every word as she recounted the journey of Millerwood from that tense day to their current harmony. The true testament to the town's transformation came unexpectedly on a chilly November evening. The local police department hosted a community appreciation night, inviting everyone to join in a celebration of unity. The event, held in the town square, was festive with strings of lights, live music, and tables laden with food from local eateries. Children darted through the crowd, their laughter a sweet melody that drowned out the sounds of the past. Chief Walters, now a regular volunteer at the community center, manned a booth designed to educate young ones about police work. His interactions were gentle, a stark contrast to the man he had once been. Watching him, Claire felt a surge of hope. It was clear that change was possible, that forgiveness could usher in new beginnings. The highlight of the evening was when Mrs. Eleanor, honored for her role in steering the community through its crisis, took to the stage. Her words were simple yet profound. "When we choose to face our challenges together, there's no storm we can't weather," she exclaimed, her voice strong despite her advanced years. Her statement was met with cheers and applause, a collective acknowledgment of their shared journey. As the night drew to a close, Claire and Chief Walters found themselves standing side by side, watching the festivities. The chief turned to her, a reflective look in his eyes. "I never thought I'd see the day when our community would come together like this. It's more than I could have hoped for," he admitted. Claire nodded, her gaze sweeping over the happy crowd. "It shows what can happen when we refuse to let a single moment define us," she replied. Their conversation was a quiet moment amid the revelry, a private recognition of the road they had traveled. As they parted ways that evening, there was a mutual understanding that their work was not done, but rather just beginning. The challenges of the past had given way to a commitment to the future, one that promised continued growth and deeper understanding. In the end, Millerwood's story was not just about overcoming a moment of injustice, but about the enduring power of community and the boundless capacity for change. It was a narrative that resonated far beyond the town's borders, inspiring others to believe in the possibility of transformation and the strength of the human spirit to forgive, rebuild, and thrive. Winter draped Millerwood in a quiet blanket of snow, the pristine white a stark contrast to the vibrant discussions and initiatives that continued to thrive within the community. As the new year approached, the town reflected on its achievements and the lessons learned from a year marked by profound transformation. Plans were underway for a New Year's Eve celebration unlike any before, intended to symbolize the unity and hope that now characterized the town. The community center, once a simple meeting place, had been transformed into a hub of continuous activity, hosting workshops, talks, and training sessions not just for the police force but for anyone interested in contributing to the town's growth. Claire, who had become something of a local celebrity for her grace and resilience, spearheaded many of these initiatives. Her latest project, a mentorship program for young leaders, was set to launch at the beginning of the year, promising new opportunities for the youth of Millerwood. On the eve of the new year, the town square was alive with anticipation. Residents of all ages gathered, their faces illuminated by the glow of lanterns released into the night sky. Each lantern carried a wish or a resolution for the future, floating upwards in a beautiful display of collective hope. As the clock neared midnight, Claire took a moment to step away from the festivities, her thoughts turning to the events that had reshaped her life and her community. Beside her, Chief Walters appeared, his presence no longer a cause for tension but a welcome sight. Together, they watched the lanterns drift higher, their light flickering against the dark sky. "Look at how far we've come," Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who would have thought that such darkness could lead us to this light?" Chief Walters nodded, his eyes reflecting the flickering lights of the lanterns. "It's a reminder," he replied, "that no matter how tough things get, there's always a path to better days." The countdown began, and the crowd joined in, their voices united in counting the last seconds of the year. As the new year rang in, fireworks burst into the sky, their brilliant colors painting the night with joy and excitement. The sound of cheers filled the air, a vibrant testament to the spirit of a community reborn. The following morning, the town awoke to a fresh start. The challenges of the past year had not disappeared, but the collective will to face them had strengthened. Claire's mentorship program welcomed its first group of eager participants, and Chief Walters continued his work with the community, each day a step towards redemption and healing. As the year unfolded, the impact of Millerwood's transformation became evident not only within its own borders, but also in communities far beyond. Other towns looked to Millerwood as a beacon of hope, a model for what could be achieved when people came together to confront their problems and work towards common goals. Millerwood's story, born from a moment of pain and injustice, had evolved into a narrative of hope, unity, and renewal. It was a story that Claire and Chief Walters knew would continue to unfold, driven by the unwavering spirit of a community that had learned the true meaning of resilience and the power of second chances. In Millerwood, the future was not just something to be hoped for. It was something to be built, day by day, by each person who called it home. As spring unfolded its blossoms across Millerwood, the town's vibrant transformation continued to inspire. The community mentorship program initiated by Claire blossomed, much like the flowers that now adorned the town's newly renovated park. Young people from various backgrounds came together, eager to learn and to lead, their aspirations nurtured by the wisdom and experiences shared by their mentors, including Claire and, surprisingly to many, former Chief Walters. One sunny afternoon, the program hosted its first public event, a festival of cultures celebrating the diverse backgrounds that composed Millerwood's identity. Booths lined the park, each representing different heritages with food, art, and music. Claire walked among the booths, her heart swelling with pride as she observed the laughter and camaraderie that had replaced the tensions of the past. "Can you believe this?" she exclaimed to a group of volunteers, her voice brimming with excitement. They all nodded, their smiles as bright as the spring sun. Amid the festivities, a local news crew, which had been documenting Millerwood's journey of transformation, interviewed residents and participants. When asked about the changes in the town, Chief Walters, who was volunteering at a booth teaching children about civic responsibility, took a deep breath before answering. "It's about accountability and about understanding," he said, his tone reflective. "And most importantly, it's about never giving up on the potential for change, within ourselves and our community." As the day drew to a close, the festival culminated with a speech from Claire. Standing on a small stage set up by the park's fountain, she looked out over the crowd, her eyes glistening with emotion. "This," she began, her voice steady despite the overwhelming feelings, "this is what happens when a community decides to rewrite its story, not with words, but with actions, with heart." The applause was loud and heartfelt, echoing through the park long after she finished speaking. The event did not just mark a day of celebration, but a reaffirmation of Millerwood's commitment to growth and unity. It was a tangible representation of how far the town had come and a reminder of the potential paths it could take moving forward. In the months that followed, the ripple effects of Millerwood's renewal were felt far and wide. Educational programs about community policing and civic engagement developed in Millerwood became models replicated in other towns. Claire was invited to speak at national conferences about the power of community-led change, and her talks, filled with personal anecdotes and practical advice, motivated others to initiate their own community transformations. Millerwood had become a story of hope, a case study in the power of community, empathy, and resolve. As each new challenge arose, it was met not with despair, but with the collective strength of a town that had learned the hardest lessons about human fallibility and forgiveness. The story of Millerwood, Claire, and even Chief Walters was no longer just their own, but had become a beacon for others searching for a way to mend the frayed fabrics of their communities. In Millerwood, the once uncertain future was now a canvas of possibilities, painted daily with the broad strokes of its residents' continued efforts and unwavering faith in what they could achieve together. Every day, in the small acts of kindness, in the shared projects at the community center, and in the laughter of children playing in the park, the spirit of Millerwood thrived, a testament to the enduring human capacity to overcome, to evolve, and to thrive. It was a lesson written not in the pages of books, but in the lives of its people, a lesson that promised, no matter the darkness faced, there was always a path toward the light.